Everyone thinks getting rich is about finding the right stock, the right side hustle, or finally earning a six-figure income. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who end up wealthy never did anything extraordinary at all, and most people who try to do everything extraordinary still never get there. The difference comes down to one number almost nobody tracks, and if yours is low, your chances of ever becoming rich drop to near zero, no matter how smart or motivated you are. My name is Marcus, and I spend way too much time thinking about how money actually works in real life, not on spreadsheets or Twitter threads. If you're someone who works hard, earns decent money, but still feels like wealth is always just out of reach, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the problem most people don't want to admit. We're taught from a young age that income is the scoreboard. More income means you're winning. Less income means you're behind, so we optimize everything around earning more. We choose careers, grind longer hours, chase promotions, start side hustles, all with the belief that once we make enough money, wealth will finally show up. But then something weird happens. People double their income and still feel broke. They go from $40,000 a year to $80,000 a year, and somehow the stress doesn't go away. The anxiety doesn't go away. The bank balance doesn't change in any meaningful way. And this isn't rare. Statistically, a huge percentage of people earning over $100,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. Not because they're irresponsible in some cartoonish way, but because the system they're following is broken. The belief that income alone predicts wealth is one of the most expensive lies in personal finance. Look, here's what most people don't realize. Wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is what you keep. And even more specifically, wealth is what you keep consistently over long periods of time. There is a single number that captures this better than anything else, and it quietly predicts your financial future with scary accuracy. That number is your savings rate, not your salary, not your net worth today, not your credit score, your savings rate, the percentage of your income that you don't spend. Now, when people hear that, they usually nod and think, yeah, save more money, I get it. But they don't actually get it, because savings rate isn't just a budgeting tip. It's a mathematical and psychological indicator of whether wealth is even possible for you. Let's slow this down and really walk through it, because this is where most advice skips the part that actually matters. Imagine two people. Person A earns $50,000 a year and saves 20% of their income. That's $10,000 a year. Person B earns $100,000 a year and saves 2% of their income. That's $2,000 a year. On paper, Person B looks wildly more successful. Better job, higher income, probably nicer apartment, nicer car, better vacations. But when it comes to wealth creation, Person A is 5 times more effective every single year. And here's where it gets really interesting. That gap doesn't stay linear. It compounds. The person saving $10,000 a year isn't just stacking cash. They're buying assets. They're buying time. They're buying options. Meanwhile, the person saving $2,000 a year is functionally stuck, even though they make more money. Over 10 years, ignoring investment growth just to keep this simple, Person A has saved $100,000. Person B has saved $20,000. That's an $80,000 difference created purely by savings rate, not intelligence, not hustle, not luck. Now add investing to the equation, and the gap gets violent. But before we even go there, we need to talk about why savings rate is so predictive in the first place, because it's not just math, it's behavior. Your savings rate reflects how you interact with money at the deepest level. It shows whether your lifestyle expands to consume everything you earn, or whether you control that expansion. It shows whether you prioritize future freedom over present comfort. It shows whether you default to spending or default to keeping. Most people don't consciously choose a low savings rate. It happens automatically. Income goes up, lifestyle inflates, and the savings rate stays the same or even drops. New car, slightly nicer apartment, more convenience spending, more I deserve this purchases. None of it feels reckless. All of it feels reasonable, and that's why it's so dangerous. Because here's the quiet trap. If your savings rate is low, time is working against you. You are forced to rely on income for survival. You can't take risks. You can't walk away from bad jobs. You can't invest aggressively because you don't have margin. Every financial decision becomes fragile. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but saving is hard, rent is expensive, life costs money. And you're not wrong. This isn't about pretending expenses don't exist. It's about understanding that savings rate is not a function of income level. It's a function of behavior. There are people earning $40,000 a year saving 15%. There are people earning $200,000 a year saving nothing. The difference isn't spreadsheets, it's identity. People with high savings rates don't think of saving as something they do after spending. They think of spending as something they do after saving. That mental flip is subtle, but it changes everything. And this is where the myth of, I'll save more when I make more, completely falls apart. Because if you don't have the habit now, more income just gives you more ways to avoid building it. You don't suddenly become disciplined at $100,000 if you weren't disciplined at $50,000. You just get more comfortable being undisciplined. Here's an analogy that makes this painfully clear. Imagine two boats crossing the ocean. One has a small leak and one has a large leak. You can pour more water into both boats, but unless you fix the leak, the one with the larger leak sinks faster. Income is the water. Spending is the leak. Savings rate tells you how bad the leak actually is. And here's the part most people miss entirely. Savings rate doesn't just determine how much money you have. It determines how fast you can buy your freedom. If you save 5% of your income, you need decades of perfect investing to escape dependence on work. If you save 30% of your income, the math compresses dramatically. The timeline shrinks. Options appear. This isn't motivational, it's arithmetic. But psychologically, savings rate does something even more powerful. It builds proof. Every month you save a meaningful percentage of your income, you are reinforcing the identity of someone who controls money instead of being controlled by it. That identity compounds just like investments do. Now, look, I've spent years observing patterns across thousands of people. Different incomes, different cities, different backgrounds. And the pattern is consistent to the point of being boring. People with high savings rates almost always end up financially secure, even if they never hit a home run. People with low savings rates almost always struggle, even if they get lucky once. That's why this one number predicts wealth better than almost anything else. But here's where we need to slow down, because this is the point where most people misunderstand what I'm actually saying. A high savings rate is not about deprivation. It's not about never enjoying life. It's not about extreme frugality for its own sake. It's about building a system where wealth becomes inevitable instead of optional. And this is the belief that needs to be dismantled right now. The idea that wealth is something you chase after you earn enough. That belief keeps people stuck in a loop where they are always waiting for permission to start. Because the truth is, if your savings rate is low, wealth isn't delayed. It's mathematically impossible. And if your savings rate is high, wealth becomes boringly predictable. And once you really see that, once you internalize what that one number actually represents, you start to realize that almost everything you've been told about getting rich focuses on the wrong lever entirely, because once you stop obsessing over income and start paying attention to savings rate, a second, even more uncomfortable realization shows up. The number doesn't just predict how much money you'll have, it predicts how long you'll be trapped. Here's what most people don't realize until it's almost too late. Your savings rate directly controls how dependent you are on your job. Not emotionally, mathematically. If you save almost nothing, you need your paycheck forever. If you save aggressively, the job slowly loses its power over you. And that shift is subtle at first, but it snowballs. Let's put real numbers to this, because this is where it stops being theory and starts feeling personal. Say you earn $70,000 a year after taxes. If you save 5%, that's $3,500 a year. That means 95% of your life depends on your employer continuing to pay you. Miss a few paychecks, and things get uncomfortable fast. You can't take time off. You can't negotiate hard. You can't walk away from bad situations. You don't have leverage. Now take that same income with a 25% savings rate. That's $17,500 a year. Suddenly, you're buying something far more valuable than stuff. You're buying time, margin, options. 1 year of saving becomes 6 months of living expenses. A few years becomes the ability to reset your life if you need to. This is where it gets really interesting. The math of savings rate creates a hidden feedback loop that most people never notice. When you save a higher percentage of your income, you need less income to maintain your lifestyle. That means every dollar invested works harder for you. That means financial independence arrives sooner than people expect. There's a well-known relationship here that rarely gets explained clearly. If you save 10% of your income, you need roughly 45 years of work to become financially independent, assuming average investment returns. If you save 20%, that timeline drops closer to 35 years. At 30%, you're looking at around 25 years. At 50%, it compresses to under 17 years. That's not motivational talk. That's math. The curve bends hard. Now you might be thinking, okay, but 50% savings is unrealistic. And for most people, you're right. But that objection misses the point entirely. You don't need perfection. You need direction. Going from 5% to 15% is not a small change. It's a life-altering one. And here's the psychological part nobody talks about. When your savings rate increases, your anxiety decreases. Not because you're richer overnight, but because your future stops feeling fragile. You stop making decisions out of fear. You stop clinging to bad situations because you're scared of losing income. That confidence shows up everywhere, including your career. Ironically, people with higher savings rates often end up earning more over time, not because they hustle harder, but because they can afford to be selective. They negotiate better. They leave dead-end jobs. They take calculated risks. This is why savings rate predicts wealth better than IQ, education, or even starting salary. It's not just a number. It's a leverage multiplier on your entire life. Now let's address the biggest mental objection head-on. Saving means sacrificing my quality of life. This is where most people get it backwards. Saving doesn't reduce quality of life. Uncontrolled spending does. When spending is automatic, you end up buying things that don't actually make you happier, while telling yourself you can't afford the things that matter. A higher savings rate forces intentionality. You start asking better questions. Do I actually value this, or is it just convenient? Does this purchase improve my life, or just my image? Those questions feel uncomfortable at first, but they quickly become empowering. Here's a behavioral rule that changes everything. Savings comes first, spending adapts. Most people reverse that. They spend first and hope there's something left. That guarantees a low savings rate. Flip the order, and the system fixes itself. Now, before we move into what to actually do, I want to establish something important. This isn't theory. This pattern shows up over and over again, across income levels, industries, and decades. People who consistently save a meaningful percentage of their income end up okay, even if they make mistakes. People who don't are constantly one surprise away from stress. It's not about being perfect with money. It's about making one number non-negotiable. So let's talk about actionable steps, because this is where things usually fall apart. First, calculate your real savings rate, not what you think it is, not what you hope it is. Look at your last 3 months. Add up everything you saved or invested. Divide it by your take-home pay. That number matters more than almost anything else in your financial life. Second, set a target that stretches you but doesn't break you. If you're at 3%, aim for 10%. If you're at 10%, aim for 15%. The goal is progress, not extremes. Third, automate it this week, not next month, this week. Set up automatic transfers the day your paycheck hits. If the money never touches your checking account, your lifestyle can't quietly absorb it. Fourth, lock in one spending rule. Just one. For example, any raise or bonus gets at least 50% saved. That single rule prevents lifestyle inflation from undoing years of progress. Here's a concrete example. If you get a $5,000 raise, $2,500 automatically goes to savings or investments. The other $2,500 improves your life. You win both ways. And finally, give it a time frame. Commit to this for the next 90 days. Don't overthink it. Don't constantly tweak. Just run the experiment and watch what happens to your stress, your confidence, and your sense of control. What most people discover is that they don't miss the money nearly as much as they thought they would. But they absolutely notice the peace. At the end of the day, getting rich isn't about being exceptional. It's about being consistent with the right number. Savings rate doesn't care about your excuses, your background, or your intentions. It quietly compounds either way. If you control that one number, wealth stops being a mystery. It becomes a trajectory. And if this made you rethink how you've been approaching money, do me a favor. Hit the like button so more people actually see this, subscribe if you want more honest conversations about money, and leave a comment answering this question. What's one change you could make this month to increase your savings rate, even slightly? Because that one number might already be deciding your future. That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.